Many of us find space interesting, and with things like movies, TV shows, and live feeds, it's helped a generation of people fall in love with the wonders of our universe. Every year, countless discoveries are made by space agencies, with NASA no longer being at the forefront of these discoveries. Other space agencies like SpaceX have stepped up their game, introducing us to new rockets, and even saying things like they plan to put millions of people on Mars within the next few decades. It's these announcements that have made people say that within the next few years, we're going to make big leaps in regards to space travel and discoveries. With more missions than ever being given the green light, people have taken time out to tune into these and wonder where the next one will take us. However, during these events, some people have made some interesting discoveries, even going as far as saying that when these missions are launched into space, they're not alone. A number of anomalies have been detected by the cameras, and this has caused many to slow down the footage in order to work out what these things are. One of the things that people say is when these strange crafts are seen out in space, they can't be ours. Agencies and researchers are quite open about the fact that space is one of the last unexplored frontier for humans. And this has caused amateur researchers to give their own opinions on what they think these objects are. One researcher said the following about this SpaceX video. For the last few days, this video has been making its way around Facebook, and it shows what it looks like a large object flying close by. I've seen different comments, with some saying that it could be part of the man-made structure that came off during the mission, and that the camera managed to pick up on it, while others think that is an unidentified flying object. What's odd is that this object does seem to have a pyramid-like shape, and to me it seems big." End quote. As mentioned, the clip is currently making the rounds on social media, with people confused about what the object is. Some people who slowed down the video suggested that it's actually a triangle UFO, a commonly cited UFO that's been reported for many years. As suggested in the name, these objects are triangular in shape and have been reported for many years, with UFO researchers saying they're one of the most common UFOs. Interestingly, amateur researchers have said these shaped crafts are also reported in space. Another user said the following about the footage. It's hard to deny that this is a trick of the camera. Whatever this object is, it definitely has the shape of a triangle, and it also looks like it has lights on it. I think this is some good evidence we have of an unidentified flying object in space." End quote. Going back a few weeks ago, Elon said the following on Twitter in regards to UFOs. "I have seen no evidence of an advanced civilization visiting Earth. Fuzzy pics that are worse than a 7 to 11 security cam frame grab don't count." End quote. Many people hit back at these comments, saying how close-minded and ignorant Elon is being. With one person saying the following, "The whole argument around why there aren't clear photographs with UFOs is a frustrating one. Take your iPhone camera, for example, and put it on maximum zoom and see what happens. It immediately goes fuzzy. Then try and take a photograph of something in the distance. Now imagine that object is moving in the sky. Now imagine your inner car washers is happening. It's near impossible to get a clear photograph of anything under these circumstances." One of the things that many people don't seem to mention is that while camera quality in everyday phones has massively increased, they're only really good for up-close photographs. Anything that's over 5 meters away starts to get blurry. Also, the majority of people aren't expecting to see UFOs, so the whole encounter is rushed. People are normally doing everyday things and don't expect to see a UFO. So when it happens, they just pull out their phone and try to take the best photo possible. It's not like people can walk around 24/7 with a tripod and a HD camera waiting for UFOs. End quote. As mentioned in previous videos, NASA's stance on these alleged objects is that they're just space debris and don't show anything of interest. Scientists and researchers all agree that these objects don't need to be investigated, and go on to say that these are likely camera anomalies. Amateur researchers have hit back at these claims, though, and say that many of these strange objects are detected during life-eons, so before the footage has even gone through any processing stages. Officials stick to their replies, though, and state these are not of interest. What's strange, though, is that there seems to be a bit of a disagreement around unidentified flying objects. You have space agencies and people like Elon saying they don't exist. And then you have the Pentagon and other US officials saying these objects need to be investigated more, and even claiming that they've recovered off-world crafts. According to Eric Davis, the astrophysicist claims that the United States Department of Defense is in possession of recovered off-world crafts. And these are verifiably not made on our planet. His story, detailed in the New York Times, claims that Davis was tasked with giving classified briefings to Defense Department agencies, the Senate Armed Services Committee, and the Senate Intelligence Committee last October. During multiple instances of recovered materials from extraterrestrial events, Davis details that he was unable to determine the source of the materials that made up recovered artifacts, most likely being off-world metals and materials that could not have been terrestrial in nature. These massively different opinions have caused some to think that NASA are not letting us in on what they know, and with some UFO researchers even praising the government for being open about this topic. It seems that time will tell whether we're told more in regards to this subject. So what do you guys make of this video? Do you think it shows a triangle UFO? Or do you think it's just a piece of space debris that made its way in front of the cameras? People are lost in all sorts of places, some where you would expect them to be, and others in unexpected areas. One situation that seems to be more likely than others is in boats, or more specifically, out at sea. Although we associate going missing with being alone, sometimes a group of people or a family can go missing, and somehow that can make it even more frightening. We'll be taking a look at 3 major cases of people who went missing after getting on boats. The 3 missing boaters. 4 years ago, on September 17, 2016, 3 people went to Lake Superior. This was so that they could go fishing on a Saturday night. The group launched their boat from the Keweenaw Park Recreation Marina in Chasseil. The trio, Keith Carvenin, aged 61, Steve Cartree, 43, and son, Ethan, who was only 9 years old, were reported missing when they didn't return home. 5 in the afternoon, as was expected by their family and friends. Between September 20th and September 22nd, numerous officials both in the United States and Canada assisted in the search for the 3 people. The search totaled over 151 hours and covered more than 14,000 square miles, aided by crews from various coast guards around Michigan, North Carolina, Massachusetts, the Michigan and the Canadian Department of National Defense. The search increased and extended from the vicinity of the Keweenaw Peninsula to the outer Keweenaw Bay into Lake Superior. Keith, the oldest of the 3, was the owner of the 14-foot boat. Pictures were shared as people were asked to provide any information on the whereabouts of the 3. Although many hoped the 3 would be found safe, this was unfortunately not the case. On October 2, 2016, a few weeks after the initial disappearance, the bodies and the boat of Carvenin, Stephen, and Ethan Chartree were all found in Lake Superior. The Michigan State Police reported that on Saturday, October 1st, around 12:45 p.m., the sunken boat was discovered by 2 non-profit volunteer search and rescue organizations, Bruce's Legacy and Crossman Consulting, were located and recovered first. Later, Stephen too was located. Additional resources were sent to assist in the efforts to recover his body. Although we don't know how or why the situation ended in this way, it was devastating for friends and family of the deceased. Although we can't claim to know the full scope of their grief, we hope that the closure provided by the discovery of their bodies after they had been missing for so long helped them in dealing with the difficulties of this tragedy. Yves Emmanuel Payne and Laurent Harness. In October 1991, 2 French sailors by the name of Yves Emmanuel Payne and Laurent Harness embarked on a 2,500-mile voyage from Maryland to Guadeloupe in the West Indies. This was on a state-of-the-art vessel worth $200,000. The boat was safe and highly operational, with a high-tech radar, a satellite tracking unit, and electronic navigational equipment. With a design that made it virtually unsinkable and undetectable by radar, it was a type of boat that would be considered ideal for trafficking medicines and firearms. The purpose of the voyage was simply to deliver this new sailboat to its new owners. The planned route followed down the Chesapeake Bay, parallel to the U.S. East Coast, before reaching the final destination in Guadalupe. The Coast Guard was notified when the boat and sailors failed to arrive as was scheduled. Despite a search that lasted over 2 weeks, the vessel wasn't found along its planned original course. However, it was spotted several times elsewhere, several miles off course in the Intracoastal Waterway. This is an inland passage that goes from New England to Florida. In December 1991, 2 of the vessel Manuel's friends flew from France to South Carolina in order to investigate the 2 men's disappearances. Like the Coast Guard, they too started by retracing the vessel's route, the first stop being a bridge 90 miles north of Charleston, South Carolina. Upon questioning, they discovered that the bridge tender recalled seeing the 2 missing sailors with a 3rd man, an extra person who was not supposed to be on the vessel. This account was then backed up by at least 5 additional witnesses. All of the witnesses seemed to agree the man didn't seem threatening. This led to theories that either one or both of the sailors had been involved in a plot to steal the boat. Friends and family, however, dismiss this idea and don't believe that either would have been involved in any illegal activities. A friend of Ave Emanuel, John Lalanek, was certain that it was a stranger at fault for taking over the vessel, possibly assisted by an armed and hidden accomplice. Lalanek believes the strangers didn't know how to sail the boat, therefore keeping the 2 sailors on board to help after taking over. Later, on December 22, 1991, a police officer stopped a speeding car, in which there were 3 men. At the time, the officer didn't know that 2 of the 3 were actually Ave's Emmanuel Payne and Lauren Harness, and likely the other was the stranger that other witnesses had seen. The next day, he realized that the 2 he'd seen had been reported missing, and that the search for them had been going on for over a month by that time. Some theories believe the 3rd passenger, the stranger, was holding them hostage from the back seat of the car. Others believe the 2 men fooled everyone and escaped with the boat. Possibly, the most startling theory of all is the French sailors unintentionally sailed into Cuban waters and were being held in a Cuban prison. But there's not enough evidence to support this. And one can only hope the 2 are still alive and okay. The Sarah Joe. The Sarah Joe was the name of a 17-foot Boston whaler boat. It was sailed by 5 men: 38-year-old Benjamin Kalama, 27-year-old Ralph Miliakini, 27-year-old Scott Mormon, 26-year-old Patrick Wasner, and 31-year-old Peter Hanchett. The crew had been friends for several years. Between the 5 of them, they had over 50 years of seagoing experience. On February 11, 1979, the crew left the harbor in Hawaii. The water seemed calm around the time that they left at 10 a.m., and it was a nice, clear day. However, 5 hours later, a sudden wind swept in from the mountains, a clear warning that a terrible storm was about to strike. The changing of the wind direction worried Peter Hanchett's father, John. Along with several others, he went to the shoreline to try and spot the boat and help wave the fishermen into shore. The men, however, weren't there. The storm arrived at sea, along with strong winds and crashing waves, which were concerning signs for friends and family of the crew. John Hanchett decided to sail into the middle of the storm in search for the boat. He found nothing after a search that lasted several hours. John Hanchett returned the next day with marine biologist John Norton, but again there were no traces of the Sarah Joe boat and crew. On the 3rd day, the Coast Guard got involved, conducting the search by helicopter and ship. The search continued to expand as the days went on, with no trace of the men and their boat. This was until 5 days later when it was officially suspended. A total of 73,000 miles had been investigated with no findings. Even the residents of the local area started to help out, searching nearby beaches and shores and looking for wreckage of the Sarah Joe. However, eventually they too gave up. It seemed there was nothing left to find and expect with this case. That was until September 9, 1988. Near a deserted atoll, John Norton spotted a small boat that had apparently washed up ashore. He and his crew landed to examine the wreckage and found some of the registration numbers on its side. It indicated that it had been registered in the Hawaiian Islands. After recording the numbers on the boat, he and his crew left the site. The Coast Guard ran a check on the numbers and determined that it was indeed the Sarah Jo. After identifying the wreckage, a nearby graveyard was excavated in search for the bodies or skeletons of the missing men. One partial skeleton was found, and dental records confirmed the remains to belong to one of the five, Scott Mormon. Although this might have been to be expected, the next discovery was not. A stack of unbound papers, which had apparently been buried deliberately. The pages were separated by slips of tin foil. The Coast Guard was unable to determine who placed them there, or for what reason. Experts believe the Sarah Jo likely drifted the 2,000 miles of the Marshall Islands, a voyage that would have taken around 3 months. There are still many questions regarding this case, and so many years later it's still unsolved. The bodies of the other 4 men were never found, and we'll probably never know what actually happened. Despite this, people haven't forgotten and keep their fond memories alive even many years later. So what do you make of these 3 boat mysteries? Humans have been advancing our knowledge for as long as we have been on Earth, and the more we learn about the inner workings of our world, the more we learn that there is to discover, and the search for new knowledge endlessly continues. Some advances are medically life-changing while others change the way that we live our lives. So today, here at Unexplained Mysteries, we'll be taking a look at 3 cases where scientific discoveries have helped us to understand the world that we live in. Water on the moon. As scientists and researchers have continued in the push to investigate the possibility of humans eventually living on the moon, a keystone question that has remained unanswered is the presence of water on the moon. The moon technically experiences day and night just like Earth, where half of the surface is being lit by the sun while the other half is in shadow, which, combined with the fact that the moon lacks the thick protective atmosphere of Earth, means that water likely has a very small chance of surviving the over 400-degree temperature swing from night to day. And yet, against all odds, 2 years ago water was discovered in the form of ice in the coldest and darkest regions of the moon, where the sun could not reach due to the natural formations of crevices and canyons in the moon rocks, leading researchers to hypothesize that water could survive below the surface. However, the discoveries recently progressed a step further when researchers on the world's largest flying observatory, NASA's Stratospheric Observatory for Infrared Astronomy, also known as SOFIA, detected traces of molecular water on the surface within reach of the harsh sunlight. This means that water could be potentially much more widespread across the surface than previously thought. The water that was found was molecular water, which means that it is simply isolated water molecules that are spread too thin to form the liquid or ice that we are used to on Earth. Scientists don't know how the water molecules appeared on the surface of the moon and how they managed to survive the harsh temperatures, but they speculate that micrometeorites that frequently crash into the moon might have ejected the water molecules on impact, surrounded by glass-like remnants of the micrometeorites that protect it from the sun. Scientists analyzing the surface of the moon have previously found hints of possible hydration on the surface of the moon, but were unsure as to whether it was actually water or the structurally similar molecule hydroxyl. However, the researchers on SOFIA were able to use their unique technology to observe a water molecule-specific wavelength, which no other spacecraft is designed to do in a small slice of the moon. This creates a problem determining how widespread these water molecules could be across the rest of the surface, as well as how it is formed, stored, and if there is any sort of water cycle with such a thin atmosphere. As much of a revelation as these discoveries are, they still leave many questions for researchers discussing whether life on the moon is possible in the near future, and much more research is needed to answer these questions. Scientists discover potential new organ in the throat. The human body is arguably the most widely and thoroughly studied organism known to science. Doctors and researchers are intimately familiar with the organs, bones, and vasculature of our bodies, and nobody ever suspected that an organ could lurk undiscovered within that well-researched minutiae. However, in October 2020, scientists published a report stating that they believe that they may in fact have done just that, locating what is likely a previously unknown pair of salivary glands near the junction of the navel cavity and the throat. Currently, there are 3 main salivary glands, below the jaw, near the ears, and underneath the tongue, But this discovery by surgeons and researchers at the Netherlands Cancer Institute proposes a fourth set of glands in the throat. They stumbled upon the structures when analyzing images of scans from an extremely sensitive machine that can recreate images of tissues in incredibly fine detail, causing the hidden organs to appear. The team then dissected cadavers for further investigation and, sure enough, discovered a pair of large glands that bear many similarities to the already known salivary glands. They were connected to large draining ducts as though to channel fluid from one place to another. If these are truly new major salivary glands, it will have huge implications for medicine, especially cancer treatments, as doctors take incredible care when administering radiation treatments to avoid the extremely delicate and easily damaged salivary tissues, which provide critical assistance for functions such as mouth lubrication, speaking, swallowing, sensing food, the immune system, and wound healing. Could help doctors decrease patient discomfort and damage to the body during radiation treatments. However, although several doctors and scientists have admitted that the study looks promising, others are uncertain as to whether these glands will classify as new organs. There are around 1,000 minor salivary glands scattered around respiratory passages, and many of them are minuscule and tucked away in locations that make discovery via imaging difficult. This caused some peers to review the paper to suggest that the scientists have merely stumbled upon a better imaging method for these elusive minor salivary glands, rather than discovering a fourth set of major salivary glands. Regardless, more study is needed, as one set of clinical data is never enough to come to such a massive conclusion, and time will tell how these hidden glands will be classified. Humans grow extra artery in their arm. For as long as humans have been on this earth, we have been constantly evolving from our Neanderthal ancestors to the Homo sapiens of today. Even now, with every baby born, the evolutionary trend continues, albeit in microscopically small increments that will take millions of years to be truly apparent. However, scientists studying the body throughout recent centuries have noticed an evolutionary trend that is taking hold rather quickly. And that is an increasing prevalence of humans with a third artery in their arms. A central artery develops in utero to supply blood to the distal portions of the arm, but it usually disappears at around 8 weeks as the fetus continues to develop and is replaced with the 2 radial and ulnar arteries. But occasionally some people keep all 3, and studies have shown percentage of people who do retain the central artery is becoming larger in the population. This was first noted by autonomists in the late 1800s as cadaver dissections revealed that a predicted 10% of the population retained the third central artery. A later study found that around 30% of the population born in the late 20th century presented with the third artery, marking an astonishing evolutionary uptick as 3 times the amount of the population are presenting with this anatomical abnormality. This is a remarkable evolutionary increase in an incredibly short period of time, as evolutionary changes generally take thousands if not millions of years to become apparent in the population. The reason for retention is not immediately apparent, but it is suggested that it could be a genetic mutation, changing health issues in pregnant mothers, or a combination of the two. Whatever the cause of the uptick, researchers predict that, if current studies are accurate, then those who are born 80 years from now will almost uniformly retain the third artery. This suggests that humans may be evolving at a much faster rate than at any other point since the 1800s. This is not the only recorded example of accelerated and ongoing human evolution either. Scientists have noted an increasing trend of babies being born without wisdom teeth, and as a result, with shorter faces and smaller jaws, leaving less room for teeth. Some are born with wisdom teeth as well as the smaller jaw structure, necessitating oral surgery to remove the extra teeth, as the reduced jaw size will lead to pain and crowding if the wisdom teeth are allowed to erupt. Less widespread, but still notable, is the increasing prevalence of babies being born with other minor anomalies, such as additional bones in their arms and legs, shorter faces, and abnormal connections between 2 or more of the many bones in their feet. These changes are collectively known as microevolution, and researchers suggest that these emerging traits could be a result of changes in natural selection and survival of the human race, as survival requires fewer specialized features and procreation is no longer a matter of survival of the fittest. Regardless of the reason, the seemingly insignificant shifts in our anatomy can ultimately lead to major structural or visual changes many generations from now, and demonstrate how unpredictable and random evolution can be, even within our own species. Sometimes the vast amount of knowledge that increasing technology and massive advances in science has allowed us to obtain can make it seem that we have an understanding of almost everything within our world, especially within our own bodies. However, the more details we uncover, be it within ourselves or even in the galaxy beyond our atmosphere, the more we realize how little we truly do understand the complex workings of the science behind our bodies and even our lives. Science is always growing, learning, and seeking to better understand what we are made of and how we are made, and it is almost certain that we will never conclude this quest for knowledge. No matter how much we think we know, there will always be more mysteries lurking just beyond our realm of understanding. But what do you make of these recent discoveries? The bottom of the ocean. Back in 2016, a strange and unexplainable deep-sea anomaly was discovered. Spotted using state-of-the-art satellite information, there appears to be a massive pyramid construction underwater that completely dwarfs the size of the pyramid seen at Giza. It appears that the structure seems to be somewhere around 3.5 to 11 miles across and looks to be resting in a large area of underwater terrain in the Pacific Ocean, a little west of Mexico. Many can even view the massive structure using Google Earth satellite images. When looking up the coordinates 12 degrees north at 119 degrees west. The discovery of the object was made by a researcher located out in Argentina by the name of Marcelo Icazusta. He claims that the structure could be evidence of the formation of an ancient civilization long before man was supposedly capable of roaming the planet, and that, at a different time in Earth's history, could have experienced a change in tide. That would allow the construction of the monstrosity. His theories, however, have not prevented a wide range of conspiracy theories from forming in the community. Many believe that it could very well be a possibility that the structure isn't that of a large underwater pyramid, but that of a secret alien base inhabiting the ocean floor. Many have often referenced the existence of strange sightings of unidentified submerged objects or that of UFOs exiting from under the ocean and shooting off into the sky in different maritime accounts. Given the structure's massive size, certain appearance, and strange artificial shape, this has led many to undoubtedly believe that it appears to be of extraterrestrial origin. Interestingly enough, other researchers have picked up on the discovery, and well-known alien hunter Scott C. Waring has already posted in his blog UFO Sightings Daily that an 8.5-mile estimate is only a conservative estimate, and that the true size of the discovery could be somewhere north of 11 miles across and possibly grouped up with other impossible-to-see structures in the region. Given the large number of reported USOs throughout the area, known as unidentified submerged objects, that have demonstrated similar properties to that of unidentified flying objects, this has led many researchers to believe that the underwater pyramid is that of an underwater alien research base still being used in the modern day. The Bassano vase. One of the strangest objects to have ever existed is that of the Bassano vase. Though incredibly beautiful in its design, this 15th-century vase crafted from carved silver has been known to carry with it a dark and terrible power. Despite the number of Italian rumors that surround the creation of the vase, the only that dates back as far as the original founders of the vase. According to the folklore, a soon-to-be-married bride born in a small village located north of Napoli had been gifted the vase by an unknown individual. That night, after accepting the vase, the woman was found writhing on the floor, clutching the vase closely, only to have suddenly died shortly after. In her death throes, she cursed the vase and claimed that it would only bring misfortune and tragedy to anyone of whom owned the vase for their own personal collection. It's due to this curse that many people believe that the Bassano vase holds a mystical power that has caused many of its future owners. Oddly enough, every owner that has been in possession of the vase has suffered immensely. In some cases, most have died shortly after adding the vase to their personal collection. After the death of the nameless woman, the myths claim that as the vase moved between family members, each person having once owned the vase would mysteriously die shortly after. Despite the value of the Bassano vase, this would eventually cause the surviving members of the family to bury away the vase and hide it at a secret location never to be found. However, the Bassano vase would be rediscovered back in 1988 and continue its streak of mysterious deaths. Up until the local law enforcement buried the vase at a hidden location, hoping that the vase would be forgotten for good. The Smoky Mountains disappearance. Father's Day weekend 1969 will never be forgotten by the Martin family. Sadly, not for happy reasons. On the 14th of June that year, Dennis Martin and his grandfather, father, and younger brother headed to the Great Smoky Mountains National Park for their annual family camp, accompanied by family friends with their 2 young boys. Dennis, a shy boy mentally about a year behind his peers, was known to respond to any call of his name, even from strangers. That day, the group had hiked to Spence Field near the Appalachian Trail in the park, planning to camp there overnight. The 4 boys began playing a game of hide and seek in the overgrowth, planning to surprise the adults. Minutes later, 3 of the 4 boys jumped out of the trees, but Dennis was nowhere to be seen. After waiting for a few minutes to see if he would appear, Dennis' father William began to worry and split the group up to search for his son. The time was around 4:30 in the afternoon. Dennis's grandfather Clyde reached the park's ranger station at around 8:30 p.m. Upon his arrival, rain began to lash down, making the search more difficult. Trails were washed away, and with temperatures dropping to around 10 degrees Celsius, the odds of finding Dennis were getting lower and lower. In the days that followed, the search party grew to nearly 1,400 members. So many people looking for Dennis, to clues being obscured and a general lack of organization within the group. The U.S. Army Special Forces, the Green Berets, even joined the search to no avail. Despite worsening weather conditions over the next few days, footprints were eventually discovered by a nearby stream. Authorities attributed them to Boy Scouts camping in the area, but retired park ranger Dwight MacArthur believes that the prints likely belonged to Martin. The search officially ended in September 1969, with Dennis presumed dead, most likely after getting lost and perishing in the awful conditions on the night of his disappearance. However, Dennis' father was convinced that his son had been abducted. After all, the campsite wasn't far from a track that Dennis could easily have been driven away on. This theory was backed up by the Key family, who had been camping in the vicinity at the time of the disappearance. A few days after Dennis went missing, the Key family reported having heard an enormous sickening scream, before seeing a hairy man walking stealthily through the woods near where the scream had come from. There are discrepancies in the recount of the Key story, but some say that the man had something bright red slung over his shoulder. Disturbingly, Dennis was wearing a red t-shirt the day he went missing. Alas, the area was never searched. In 1985, an illegal ginseng hunter came forward saying that he discovered remains about 3 miles from. However, fearing prosecution for his illegal hunting, he had kept the discovery to himself for years. This time the area was searched, but the bones were long gone, likely scattered by animals. Theories abound as to what really happened to Dennis Martin. Did he simply get lost and perish in the harsh conditions, dying from natural causes, starvation, or even animal attack? Or did something much more sinister happen to the little boy? How an innocent child cruelly disappeared that weekend in 1969 in Great Smoky Mountains National Park. Alexander Cushin, if you've never heard of Alexander Cushin, he was a very young, ambitious oceanographer and Arctic explorer in the late 1880s to early 90s. At just 17 years of age, Alexander fell in love with the sea and became a seaman on a Norwegian ship. His exposure to Norwegians made him passionate about the culture. He mastered their language in 1 year and would later go on to write short Norwegian to Russian dictionaries for his compatriots. Cushin went for numerous expeditions, especially one to the South Pole. As an oceanographer and navigator, he made numerous observations in the southern Atlantic, but Cushin's biggest exploration was yet to come. In 1911, he earned his biggest trophy when he got engaged to a Slow Paulson, the girl of his dreams. They were deeply in love with each other and had planned to get married. At the end of one of their successful summer field expeditions, some top members of Cushin's ship returned to Russia for vacation. Captain Cushin and 10 others of his crew members got bored one day and decided to explore the Pacific Ocean by the Northern Sea Route. The young captain and his crew had failed in consulting with the authorities in St. Petersburg. This would later end up being an awful decision because their ship was too small for the kind of expedition they had embarked on. Unfortunately, that would be the last expedition they would embark on, because their ship would later disappear without a trace. The ship was sent in search of the crew in 1914 to 1915, but to no avail. It wasn't until 1937 that relics of the ship would be found. Captain Ku Shin was a very bright young man, but sadly died at the age of 25, leaving behind his 18-year-old fiancée, who later died in 1987. Antoine Rose, whenever the subject of witchcraft is mentioned, we always picture a witch riding a broom. Have you ever wondered why that is? The story dates back to the 15th century during the time of Antoine Rose, more commonly known as the Witch of Savoy. Rose was put to trial in a court in France in the year 1477. Some believed that she was under torture. According to her story, she was struggling and in a desperate need of money. She decided to tell her neighbor about her ordeal. This neighbor allegedly introduced her to a group of people who convinced her to come to the devil for help. According to Antoine Rose, the devil appeared to her in the form of a man called Robinet. He offered to provide all the money that she wants with the condition that she would abandon God and honor him, the devil, instead. Being destitute and desperate at the same time, Rose had to choose between dying of poverty and making a deal with the devil. She agreed to his terms to pay homage to him through rituals. The devil made another demand that she should pay him a portion of her earnings each year. Sounds like the devil knows how to collect tax. She agrees to this as well. The devil kept his end of the bargain, and he gave Antoine Rose a bag of gold and silver. He also gave her a few other things that she did not exactly ask for. Those items did not have any monetary value, but it was for Rose to use during the rituals. She needed to perform to pay homage to the devil. She received a stick and a jar filled with ointment. These came with a set of instructions and directions. To her surprise, all she needed to do was dip the stick to the ointment, mount it and utter the words, "Go in the devil's name, go." According to Rose, the rituals she performed for the devil required her to dance, feast and kiss the behind of the devil when she transformed into a black dog. She admitted that she was terrified when she met the devil the first time. She recounted that he had a hoarse voice that she hardly understood what he was saying. Antoine Rose's story is not the original when it comes to the devil giving women powers to fly on a broomstick. Guillaume Edlon was earlier by a few years who shared her story in 1453. Guillaume admitted to being forced and tortured to fly on a broomstick. Every culture has its own version of the origin of witches. As for France and the whole world, Rose and Edelin's stories are how the broomsticks started coming into the picture. The question that comes to mind after hearing these accounts is not so much whether or not they were real, but how much gold and silver did they get and was it worth it? MV Joyita, the almost unsinkable MV Joyita, was found in poor condition and drifting near Fiji 5 weeks after it disappeared. It was partially submerged, but it wasn't sunk. However, by the time it was discovered, its 25 crew and passengers were all long gone with the cargo and 3 life rafts. If you were one of the passengers knowing that the ship you are on has a very strong structure, would you have risked sailing on a life raft in an open sea at night instead of staying aboard? The logical answer would be a resounding no. But what exactly happened that night? Nobody knows. It all started on October 3, 1955. MV Joyita left Apia Harbor in Samoa bound for the Tekalaw Islands, which is about 270 miles away. It was originally scheduled to leave the day before, but it had an issue with its port engine clutch. It eventually sailed the next day running on only one engine. It had 16 crew members and 9 passengers, including 1 doctor. MV Joyita was expected to reach to Callao in no more than 48 hours. It was supposed to arrive on October 5, 1955. It was already a day overdue when the portal for Calfa reported that MV Joyita never made it. No distress signal was received from the crew, which left everyone with no clues as to what happened. A search and rescue team were sent the same day, and for a whole week they tried to find answers. But they came back with nothing. It wasn't until November 10, 1955, when the captain of another merchant ship sighted MV Joyita drifting 600 miles off its course. It was found slightly submerged and empty. All its passengers and more than 4 tons of cargo were all gone. Based on the remaining fuel, the ship made it about 243 miles on its course before the engine failed due to a pipe leak in the engine cooling system. The radio system was found to have been functioning, but only had a reach of 2 miles. Even if the ship had sent a distress signal, it would never have been received. However, this could have been easily fixed by one of the members of the crew. These findings create a deeper mystery surrounding the real events that happened that night. For decades, numerous theories have been suggested, but today we are going to focus on the 2 most controversial ones. The first theory accuses the Japanese forces of having kidnapped and killed the passengers of MV Joyita. The year 1955 was still around the time when Japanese forces were to blame concerning any sea vessel disappearances in this area. The MV Joyita might have witnessed something that they shouldn't have, which made them a target of a Japanese group. This would also explain the missing cargo, as it could have been transferred to another ship. The second theory has something to do with Captain Thomas H. Miller, the captain of MV Joyita. He knew that the ship was sturdy and could at least keep them all safe until the daytime. However, the evidence found on the recovered ghost ship proves that the passengers left at night. According to a close friend of the captain, knowing him, he would have never left the ship even if it cost him his life, and yet the captain was gone along with the rest of the people aboard. One of the most logical explanations for this could be that the captain was injured or somehow incapacitated. This theory has gained credence following the discovery of blood-stained bandages on the ship. Hoya Basu Forest UFO's Hoya Basu Forest has been a hotbed of mysterious reports from the locals living in Transylvania. The legends of the area go back to times from its original finding, including claims of vampiric entities roaming through its trees. Further investigations from nearby residents have also located a large circular clearing at the center of the forest that seems to not be visible from above. This clearing is reported as being a portal into another dimension, and that those who enter it may not ever return after doing so. Tourists often report sudden feelings of intense anxiety and nausea as they begin approaching towards the center of the forest. There also seems to be a record number of panic attacks that seem to be reported in the region as well. Though there are no claims of seeing anything supernatural, paranormal, or extraterrestrial, as more and more tourists visit this location in awe. Interestingly enough, conspiracy theorists have made a strange connection between the nature of the forest and numerous different extraterrestrial encounters in the past. Apparently, there seems to be a connection between the sudden feelings of paranoia and anxiety in the forest and that of sudden encounters with extraterrestrials. Many often report that when an alien ship is nearby, whether they are aware of it or not, they will suddenly feel a terrible anxiety and panic come over them, similar to that experienced in the forest of Hoyabashu. This has led some conspiracy theorists to believe that perhaps the area is inhabited or visited by that of extraterrestrial beings. Regardless of this belief, scientists are still unable to explain the constant feelings of dread and anxiety experienced by those of whom visit the forest, and believe it to be potentially caused by the reactions of others that build up in large groups. Women from Lem statue, also known as the goddess of death. Women from Lem is a historic artifact carved from pure limestone. It was discovered in 1878 during an excavation in Lem, Cyprus. Archaeologists believe that it was made around 3500 BCE. The exact purpose of this mysterious statue is unknown. Since its discovery, this statue has been in possession of 4 different families, and each family has had a tragic ending. Lord Elfont was the first owner of the Woonframlem statue. He, along with his 6 other family members, died within 6 years of acquiring the statue. The second owner was Ivar Minasi. He had a similar fate, and he, along with his family, died within 4 years of acquiring the mysterious artifact. The same thing happened to the third owner, Thompson Knoll, and his family. Then the statue disappeared for a while, and no one knows who had it in their possession. However, it reappeared and came into the possession of Sir Alan Biverbrook, who did not know about the fate of the previous owners. Sir Alan Biverbrook, his wife and 2 daughters died a few months after getting the statue. Realizing that there was some kind of curse attached to the statue, the 2 surviving sons of Sir Alan Biverbrook donated the artifact to the Royal Scottish Museum in Edinburgh, Scotland, who died within 1 year. Since then, the statue has been kept at the museum, and those who know about it stay away from it while visiting the museum. Mysterious orb lights. Over the years, many people have reported seeing mysterious lights in Marfa, Texas. For this reason, the lights have been called the Marfa lights. What's different about these lights, though, is the fact that they've been seen for many generations. Early settlers would describe seeing bright objects that pulsated, and when they tried to approach them, they simply vanished. The lights appear almost nightly and can be seen at a distance from Highway 90. One recent theory that's been put forward is that these lights are actually car headlights, and what people are seeing is the reflections. They are most commonly observed close to Route 67, on Mitchell Flat east of Marver, Texas. But the thing is, there is nothing around this location. It's mostly shrubs and desert. And as mentioned, these lights have been seen for hundreds of years, so that rules out the idea of it being cars. Some have suggested the lights could be a form of UFO. Over the years, quick-moving orbs have been linked to UFOs. Skinwalker Ranch is one property where these orbs have been seen. The family living here started noticing glowing blue balls moving around the property. The balls gave off a crackling sound, seemed intelligently controlled, and could either hover or move unbelievably fast. One evening, the family watched as a blue ball approached one of their horses. The light hovered within a foot of the horse's face, which spooked it immediately. From a distance of 10 feet, they shined a flashlight on the blue globe and it retreated. It then approached one of the family members as if inspecting them. They described it as a glass ball about the size of a baseball, which appeared to contain 2 blue fluids which intermingled with each other. Some have suggested the Marfa lights are ball lightning. Ball lightning is the strange occurrence of when the conditions appear to be just right and the static discharge of a normal thunderstorm creates what appears to be floating balls of pure lightning and energy. Not only do these strange, unexplained instances of ball lightning create an unexplainable perfect spherical shape, but they also appear to move erratically through the sky and have often been mistaken as alien encounters. Interestingly enough, scientists are no closer to understanding what causes ball lightning and believe that the circumstances surrounding the appearance might be completely unexplainable, given the numerous amounts of variables surrounding their creation. The disappearance of Laura Bradbury. The final case we're going to talk about today is the heartbreaking disappearance of Laura Bradbury. 3-year-old Laura Bradbury, along with her 2 parents and older brother, were camping in the Joshua Tree National Park in 1984. It was on October 18th that Laura, along with her then 8-year-old brother Travis, went to the portable restrooms at the campground they were staying at. Travis left Laura outside whilst he used the restroom. By the time he had come out, Laura had been in the restroom, was gone. A search party of 250 people with the assistance of helicopters and dogs scoured the national park for Laura. After no breakthrough within 3 days, the police ended their search. Despite this, the Bradbury family showed no sign of stopping, handing out millions of flyers and even appearing on national TV to get the word out. They also set up a dedicated hotline for any information. A bearded man thought to be in his 50s, described as pot-bellied with a blue van, was seen around the area right before Laura disappeared, and then later near Burns Canyon. Michael, Laura's father, began to lose faith in the police and slammed them for not following up enough on tips coming through, telling reporters that the police were incompetent or lazy or both, and even went as far to suggest a cover-up. Michael then found out about Toby Santangelo and Clifford Laville, and the fact that they supposedly told police information regarding the suspected kidnapper, but it was apparently investigated and deemed not credible. These 2 men were then found killed shortly after coming forward. 2 years later, in 1986, a child's skull was found a couple of miles away from the campsite. However, it was never able to be proven it was Laura's. However, new tests were carried out on the skull in 1990, and they found the skull was a 99% match to Laura. Since 2009, Michael has been requesting the transfer of the skull found to a mortuary. But because there has yet to be a death certificate issued, the remains cannot be released. During an interview in 2010, Michael said that he was shown two completely different skulls during the investigation. A smaller partial skull shortly after the remains were found and a larger full skull later on in the investigation. Also in a report on tests carried out whilst the skull was a match in one DNA test. There were 3 other tests carried out, including one using hair from Laura's hairbrush did not match the skull. What happened to Laura Bradbury remains a mystery to this day. Most people think of NASA, they think of space. The agency has carried out a variety of tests in the last few decades, easily becoming the most well-known space agency in the world. It's for this reason that many people look up to them, with some even going on to make it their goal to work for the agency in the future. The years of experience and discoveries have left millions of people speechless. They've taken us one step closer to becoming a spacefaring species, something that many scientists the world over say is our destiny. Interestingly, with all these missions comes thousands of photographs, most of which don't include anything special. But if you spend enough time looking through them, it's said you may spot something mysterious. Amateur researchers have made it their goal to look through these photos to try and find these anomalies. Although this sounds like something that wouldn't get many results, you would be wrong. With many individuals saying that many NASA images contain mysterious objects in the background, it's these photographs that have caused some to question whether we're alone in the universe. One of them was this dark object that could be seen in the corner of an old NASA photograph. This photograph comes from the STS mission, also known as the Space Transportation System. In several of these photographs, these strange-looking objects can be seen close to the space shuttles, causing some to question what these things are. This seems to be no consistency with them, with some being disc-shamed, while others are triangular and pyramid-shamed. One thing that amateur researchers point out, though, is that they don't look man-made, saying that they don't think these objects are space debris. One UFO researcher said the following about these objects. What's become apparent in recent years is that many UFOs have been sighted in space. The live feeds have given us researchers a great opportunity to scan the area above our planet. And if you look at these for long enough, you'll likely see something strange. It's been many UFOs that have been seen above our planet. And as many have pointed out before me, label all of these as space debris is just delusional. They need to be taken more seriously and researched. There's others who have suggested that these objects might be the infamous Black Knight satellite, a satellite known in UFO circles as allegedly being thousands of years old and being placed above our planet with the sole purpose of watching humanity. And that these are just made-up stories pushed by UFO researchers. They go on to say that what people are seeing is space debris, further saying that the area above our planet is littered with hundreds of satellites and other man-made objects. There's some who say that their trust in NASA has taken a hit in recent years, and this comes after a number of announcements. For example, one of these they point to is the moon footage. One significant mistake made by NASA was losing the original footage of the first moonwalk. NASA officials claim to have searched for these missing tapes since their disappearance. NASA have stated that the tapes were simply misplaced, but many people doubt this due to the vast number of tapes that must have been lost. The question is, how did they lose such valuable tapes? Before the tapes were lost, clips from the footage were broadcast on television. These first steps of man on the moon were an unparalleled achievement in space travel, and therefore it seems unbelievable that these tapes could be misplaced so easily. Many theories were created regarding the whereabouts of the missing tapes. Some say they were hidden from public for security reasons. Others say that they were really lost, and there's also some slightly more complex theories. One of the theories created by a community of people who don't trust the credibility of NASA state that these alleged missing files are hiding something, and so the space agency got rid of any evidence that was on them. However, in recent years these missing tapes were found. It's believed that more than 200,000 tapes of recordings were considered not important by NASA and were demagnetized to be reused for other occasions and therefore made their way to an auction. And NASA in turn purchased approximately 65 boxes of these tapes in an auction. Not knowing that the tapes had such important footage on them, the intern planned to sell the tapes on a television station, where they would have been recycled and used for new recordings. However, the intern then noticed the label on the outside of the boxes, identifying them as the Apollo 11 mission. The intern had heard the story of the lost tapes, and therefore found a way to play the tapes in order to identify them. Once they were confirmed as the missing tapes, approximately 2.5 hours of footage was recovered. As of right now, UFO researchers and scientists are at a standoff. One side firmly believes that these objects need to be investigated, while the other side states that there's no proof that these are intelligent objects. UFO believers hit back these claims though and state that in some cases these objects can be seen changing direction, and sometimes they can be seen speeding off at speeds that humans would never be able to manage. It seems that all the time strange objects are being detected on live cams, there will always be those that will want further research to be done. One UFO researcher said the following: "The reason many UFO researchers believe that these objects are real is because of how NASA acts. When these objects come into view, the live cams are suddenly shut off. I think that if it wasn't for them doing this, people wouldn't be so interested. But because they get shut off almost immediately, it makes us question why they do this. What are they trying to hide that they'll go to the lengths of shutting down the cameras? More investigations need to be made into this phenomena." End quote. So what do you guys make of this photograph? And what do you think it shows? Do you think it belongs to something mysterious? Or is it something natural like space debris? Also, what do you make of NASA losing the original moon landing footage? Most people think of NASA, they think of space. The agency has carried out a variety of tests in the last few decades, easily becoming the most well-known space agency in the world. It's for this reason that many people look up to them, with some even going on to make it their goal to work for the agency in the future. The years of experience and discoveries have left millions of people speechless. They've taken us one step closer to becoming a spacefaring species, something that many scientists the world over say is our destiny. Interestingly, with all these missions comes thousands of photographs, most of which don't include anything special. But if you spend enough time looking through them, it's said you may spot something mysterious. Amateur researchers have made it their goal to look through these photos to try and find these anomalies. Although this sounds like something that wouldn't get many results, you would be wrong. With many individuals saying that many NASA images contain mysterious objects in the background, it's these photographs that have caused some to question whether we're alone in the universe. One of them was this dark object that could be seen in the corner of an old NASA photograph. This photograph comes from the STS mission, also known as the Space Transportation System. In several of these photographs, these strange-looking objects can be seen close to the space shuttles, causing some to question what these things are. This seems to be no consistency with them, with some being disc-shamed, while others are triangular and pyramid-shamed. One thing that amateur researchers point out, though, is that they don't look man-made, saying that they don't think these objects are space debris. One UFO researcher said the following about these objects: "What's become apparent in recent years is that many UFOs have been sighted in space. The live feeds have given us researchers a great opportunity to scan the area above our planet. And if you look at these for long enough, you'll likely see something strange. It's been many UFOs that have been seen above our planet. And as many have pointed out before me, label all of these as space debris is just delusional. They need to be taken more seriously and researched." There's others who have suggested that these objects might be the infamous Black Knight satellite, a satellite known in UFO circles as allegedly being thousands of years old and being placed above our planet with the sole purpose of watching humanity, and that these are just made-up stories pushed by UFO researchers. They go on to say that what people are seeing is space debris, further saying that the area above our planet is littered with hundreds of satellites and other man-made objects. There's some who say that their trust in NASA has taken a hit in recent years, and this comes after a number of announcements, For example, one of these they point to is the moon footage. One significant mistake made by NASA was losing the original footage of the first moonwalk. NASA officials claim to have searched for these missing tapes since their disappearance. NASA have stated that the tapes were simply misplaced, but many people doubt this due to the vast number of tapes that must have been lost. The question is, how did they lose such valuable tapes? Before the tapes were lost, clips from the footage were broadcast on television. These first steps of man on the moon were an unparalleled achievement in space travel, and therefore it seems unbelievable that these tapes could be misplaced so easily. Many theories were created regarding the whereabouts of the missing tapes. Some say they were hidden from public for security reasons. Others say that they were really lost, and there's also some slightly more complex theories. One of the theories created by a community of people who don't trust the credibility of NASA state that these alleged missing files are hiding something, and so the space agency got rid of any evidence that was on them. However, in recent years these missing tapes were found. It's believed that more than 200,000 tapes of recordings were considered not important by NASA and were demagnetized to be reused for other occasions and therefore made their way to an auction. And NASA in turn purchased approximately 65 boxes of these tapes in an auction. Not knowing that the tapes had such important footage on them, the intern planned to sell the tapes on a television station, where they would have been recycled and used for new recordings. However, the intern then noticed the label on the outside of the boxes, identifying them as the Apollo 11 mission. The intern had heard the story of the lost tapes, and therefore found a way to play the tapes in order to identify them. Once they were confirmed as the missing tapes, approximately 2.5 hours of footage was recovered. As of right now, UFO researchers and scientists are at a standoff. One side firmly believes that these objects need to be investigated, while the other side states that there's no proof that these are intelligent objects. UFO believers hit back these claims though and state that in some cases these objects can be seen changing direction, and sometimes they can be seen speeding off at speeds that humans would never be able to manage. It seems that all the time strange objects are being detected on live cams, there will always be those that will want further research to be done. One UFO researcher said the following: "The reason many UFO researchers believe that these objects are real is because of how NASA acts. When these objects come into view, the live cams are suddenly shut off. I think that if it wasn't for them doing this, people wouldn't be so interested. But because they get shut off almost immediately, it makes us question why they do this. What are they trying to hide that they'll go to the lengths of shutting down the cameras? More investigations need to be made into this phenomena." End quote. So what do you guys make of this photograph? And what do you think it shows? Do you think it belongs to something mysterious? Or is it something natural like space debris? Also, what do you make of NASA losing the original moon landing footage? Space is huge and it's full of mysteries, but there's nothing in space quite as mysterious and as large as a black hole. These voids of emptiness are one of the most perplexing, interesting, and terrifying things in the whole universe. So today, here at Unexplained Mysteries, we'll be taking a look at 3 black hole mysteries. Mysterious cosmic object swallowed black holes. If black holes themselves weren't enigmatic enough, we're also starting to realize what black holes can digest, and it can be just as intriguing. June 2020, the news came in of something amazing that happened over 800 million light-years away. This event was so powerful, so full of energy, that it actually managed to cause a crease in space-time itself. The event was a black hole eating an object we cannot identify. The event was recorded by 3 detectors on Earth, tuned to pick up the delicate change in readings, and the equipment picked up the black hole's feast on the 14th of August, 2019. Safe to say scientists were extremely interested in decoding the information picked up by their equipment, and researchers got to work straight away. The amazing and far-off event called GW190814 is one of the most fascinating cosmic mergers that have been detected by the Laser Interferometer Gravitational Wave Observatory, also known as LIGO. LIGO is a collaborative effort using the labor of hundreds upon hundreds of scientists and researchers. The The story goes that GW 190814 happened over the course of millions or even billions of years. The black hole and the mystery object continued to orbit each other, coming closer until they eventually clashed. One of the objects in the event was confirmed to be a black hole with enough total mass equal to 23 of our solar system's sun. The other object, eaten by the giant black hole, was measured to be around 2.5 solar masses. The report by the team of researchers found some interesting details about the mystery object. The object is in a state somewhere between having a surface like a star and being a complete vacuum like a black hole. The mass of the object is also in a strange state, with the mass being between the lightest black holes and the heaviest neutron stars. Scientists across the world are trying to solve the quandary of where a neutron star ends and where a black hole starts. The answer to this question could help us know how matter reacts in the most turbulent and powerful conditions of the universe. As the universe extends into the last stages of its life, most if not all matter in the universe could be made up of neutron stars and black holes, since these celestial bodies are the last stage of stellar evolution. Because of this, researchers are very interested in unraveling the complexities of GW 190814. A scientist stated, if it's a neutron star, it's an exciting mass for a neutron star. If it's a black hole, it's an exciting mass for a black hole. Either way, it's an exciting discovery. The oldest black hole in the universe. Many celestial bodies in the universe are old. But when scientists in 2017 realized they had found what could be one of the oldest black holes in the universe, they were understandably ecstatic. The black hole Ulast 1342098 has a name just as big as its size. Astronomers were flabbergasted to find that the black hole located millions of light years away had a mass that's more than 800 million times larger than that of our sun. Even more amazingly, the gigantic black hole reached this mass when the universe was only at 5% of its current age. The gargantuan ULAS black hole first came into creation a mere 690 million years after the Big Bang, a very short time in the relative time of the universe. The discovery of such a massive celestial body may teach us more about black holes and their massive sizes. This may shine a light on how the conditions of the early universe changed to what they currently are today. The black hole is also paired with a nearby quasar, and the bright display of light also takes a new record for the furthest discovered quasar. The record used to belong to ULA's J11120-0641, which is a distant 13.04 billion light-years from us and came into existence around 750 million years after the Big Bang. It's believed that at the center of most, if not all galaxies, lies a supermassive black hole. These black holes are much larger than their standard-sized namesakes and can reach anywhere from millions to billions of times the mass of our sun. That these massive space vacuums create huge displays of light as they devour local stars and other matter. These events are believed to create what we know as quasars, which are some of the brightest objects in the known universe. Because of their incredible brightness, researchers and astronomers are able to pick up and detect quasar activity from some of the farthest points in the known universe, meaning they are some of the most distant objects we know that exist. Quasars that are further away are much older in age, and the older and further a quasar is, the longer it takes for the light to travel to Earth. The fastest growing black hole. When we think of black holes, we usually think of giant space vacuum cleaners eating everything they come into close contact with and pulling anything unfortunate enough to enter their paths. But not all black holes grow at the same speed, and some actually grow much faster than others. If 2020 wasn't scary enough, it also marks the year where scientists confirmed that the existence of what is now known as the fastest growing black hole ever recorded. In 2018, at the Australian National University, a team of researchers discovered the black hole with the short name of J2157. After years of investigation, the team examined the object's mass and matter intake to better understand the black hole's condition. What they found was staggering. Using the Very Large Telescope in Chile, the team knew that the black hole is actually a quasar. Technically speaking, quasars are very bright centers of space that surround supermassive black holes as they pull in matter. As the matter is dragged into the black hole, Energy is ejected out in massive amounts, and we can observe this energy all across the electromagnetic spectrum. The matter that surrounds the black hole's edge moves at incredible speeds, almost the speed of light. This has left some scientists to describe the phenomenon as a natural particle accelerator. We now know that J2157 is actually 34 billion times the mass of our Sun. For comparison, the Milky Way is home to the supermassive black hole Sagittarius A star. Our black hole is a meager 4.2 million solar masses, roughly 8,000 times less than J2157. If you were to swap Sagittarius A star with J2157, it would shine 10 times brighter in the sky than the moon. The rate that J2157 is growing is equally astounding. Believe it or not, the Beermoth black hole actually grows roughly 1 solar mass each Earth day. That's one size of our Sun every 24 hours. It's also about 3.8 planet Earths every second that passes. Team researcher Dr. Foyen Bien, an astronomer from the European South Observatory, said the following of the discovery. We knew we were on to a very massive black hole when we realized its fast growth rate. How much black holes can swallow depends on how much mass they already have. So for this one to be devouring matter at such a high rate, we thought it could become a new record holder, and now we know. However, luckily for us, J2157 is roughly 12.5 billion light-years away. This means that we are observing it when the universe was 10% of the age it is now. Scarily, this also means the black hole is likely much, much larger today, and its size could be unimaginable. While black holes may mystify and terrify us, there's no denying that there is plenty more for us to learn about the universe's most destructive and gargantuan celestial bodies. But what do you make of these black hole mysteries? The first lunar landing mission took flight in 1969 in the hopes of putting humans on the moon. The Saturn V rocket was launched from the Kennedy Space Center, carrying astronauts Neil Armstrong, Michael Collins, and Buzz Aldrin. The Apollo 11 space mission had lifted off, and it would go on to become one of the most iconic moments in history. Armstrong and Aldrin touched down on the lunar surface, with Collins remaining in the command module which orbited overhead. This mission to a new frontier was a huge success, but it seemed to have caused a wave of new UFO sightings. Could there have been otherworldly visitors curious about human space endeavors? Over the years, NASA have collected a vast number of images taken from space and have gone on to upload them for public viewing. One of these images was found by Black Vault user, who has studied thousands of images looking for anything unusual. The image of interest was taken from Apollo 9 over the Chuska Mountains in Arizona, and this was on the 3rd of August 1969. When zoomed in, it clearly shows a triangular object traveling above our planet. It's caused many theories to be put forward, but the craft can easily be seen, and it's just one of the many UFO sightings of triangular graphs. This caused people to look deeper into this topic, and it turns out these black triangles have been witnessed for years. One of the earliest accounts was the black triangle seen during the 1561 celestial event. In UFO circles, this is one of the most baffling and intriguing cases of UFO activity ever recorded. Strange sightings in our skies have often been reported throughout history, but the celestial event that occurred in Nuremberg is by far unique. On April 14, 1561, citizens in Nuremberg and Bavaria were awoken to a strange scene that played out in the skies above them. Residents claim they saw hundreds of small objects, similar to fireballs that were exploding in the sky, as well as craft shapes like spheres, triangles, and crosses. These crafts seemed to fly erratically, as if at battle with one another. This event lasted for over an hour, at the end of which a large triangle-shaped craft was seen to come into sight, followed by a large crash that could be heard outside the city. This celestial battle was recorded by Hans Glaser. The translation of the wood carving can be read as the following. At daybreak between 4 and 5 a.m., a dreadful apparition occurred in the sun, and this was seen in Nuremberg in the city by many men and women. At first, there appeared in the middle of the sun 2 blood-red semicircles, just like the moon in its last quarter, and in the sun above and below on both sides, the color was blood. This stood around a ball of partly dull, partly black color. In between there were visibly a few blood-red crosses, between which there were red stripes, becoming thicker to the rear, and in the front malleable like the rods of reed grass, which were intermingled. These all started to fight among themselves, so that the globes which were the first in the sun flew out to the new ones standing on both sides. Therefore the globes standing outside the sun in the small and large rods flew into the sun. Besides, the globes flew back and forth among themselves and fought with each other for over an hour. When the conflict was in the sun's path, the sun got more intense. They became fatigued to such an extent that, as mentioned above, fell from the sun down upon the earth, as if they all burned and then just wasted away on the earth with immense smoke. After all this, there was something like a black sphere, very long and thick-sided. The shaft pointed to the east and the point pointed west. Although we have seen shortly one after another many kinds of signs, we are still, unfortunately, no closer to finding out what this event was. Back in 1561, the sighting would have been looked upon with a deeply religious significance, but to modern-age researchers and UFO enthusiasts, it may have been otherworldly visitors of a different kind. Though triangular UFO sightings are common, those who witness the crafts often report them as having similar features. Triangular UFOs are often said to be completely silent, making no noise whatsoever as they hover above, leaving behind no sign of contrails. The crafts are also usually reported to be around the size of a football field and dark in color. But given the wide variety of reports over the years, triangular-shaped crafts seem to be one of the more common shapes that are witnessed. David Marlowe, UFO researcher and author of Triangular UFOs: An Estimate of the Situation, claims to have researched over 17,000 UFO sightings that involve triangular-shaped crafts, otherwise referred to as black triangles. While these types of UFOs are often associated with otherworldly visitors, there are some that speculate their earthly origins. Secret government projects have been going on for years, and while we don't know the extent or scale of these projects, it's entirely possible that these are human in origin and are used as surveillance technology or as experimental aircraft. Most of these sightings occur at night, which makes it more likely for the government to test secret projects under the cover of darkness. Chris Mellon, the former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Intelligence during the Clinton and George W. Bush administration, said the following: "There have been many instances in which these vehicles have been observed, and this has been over bases operated by a strategic air command." End quote. Despite the many sightings that have occurred in the U.S., triangular-shaped objects have been reported across our planet since the Cold War, and even going into the early 1950s. However, the most notable sightings were witnessed in New York's Hudson Valley, around 50 miles outside of New York City, and New York's Taconic Parkway between 1983 and 1986. A strange cross was witnessed by hundreds of people as traffic on roads nearby came to a standstill, and motorists left their vehicles to get a better look at the airships. One of the witnesses, Kevin Sovola, contacted the nearby Stewart Air Force Base to try and find out whether the craft belonged to the military. Because the craft was so big, Kevin thought it could only have been a C-5 transport plane, which was then the largest aircraft in the world. The Air Force Base, however, had told Kevin that none of their C-5s had been airborne that night, leaving the mystery craft open to further speculation. 2 police officers went out on a late-night patrol in Belgium when they claimed to have witnessed a strange triangular-shaped craft above them. More Belgian citizens also reported seeing similar crafts, which were described as a flying platform and a triangular object with a bright red center. 2 F-16 fighter jets were deployed to investigate a triangular-shaped UFO a year later in 1990, and the pilots had managed to record the craft's amazing maneuverability and acceleration, which they were unable to match. One craft which may offer an explanation for many of the sightings is the U.S. military's TR-3B secretive anti-gravity triangular-shaped planes. They look very similar to what's been reported in some sightings previously, but officially the aircraft does not exist. This also doesn't explain the black triangles that was seen during the 1561 event. So what do you make of these interesting UFO sightings? Various mysteries of the Longyu Caves. The Longyu Caves lie near the village of Xianbigan, China. These caves are massive. They are very ancient and extensive underground structures. The Longyu Caves grottos are thought to date back as far as 2,000 years. They are one of the largest underground excavations in the world, and they are covered in various mysteries that cannot be explained. They were first discovered by a local villager back in 1992. By now we have found 36 caves, and each one of the caves contains rooms, bridges, pools, and gutters. There are pillars that were made to support the ceiling, walls, and stone columns that are covered in chisel marks and series of various parallel lines. 35 caves remain closed to the public, but one of them is even opened for tourism. How were these caves constructed? No one really knows. There were no tools found in the area. Scientists are stunned by the perfect symmetry and precision of the caves. And even now, we could probably not even build something like this ourselves. On a question who built them and what was their purpose, we can all remain silent once again because no one actually knows this either. Some theories claim that the entire cave complex was actually used for extracting and mining mineral resources. Some claim these were made to be tombs of the old emperors. One theory suggests the caves were places made for troops. They were stationed there when the emperor wanted to keep his soldiers out of view. Sadly, many theories have been abandoned because the caves should have taken years to actually build, and there is no construction evidence found related to any of the complex parts. Most of the caves are nearly identical and they all follow the same building pattern. Which theory is the right one? And who really built these massive caves? Astronomers discover Uranus smells like rotten eggs. Our world is full of weird experiences. When we step outside our little world that we call Earth, the experiences seem to get weirder. However, there are some things that remain the same even in space and on other planets. So it will not be a surprise to experience similar smells, sounds, or other phenomenon on other planets as we do on Earth. Recently, scientists discovered that Uranus, which is the third largest planet in our solar system, has some really smelly stuff wafting around. The clouds on the upper atmosphere of Uranus are composed largely of hydrogen sulfide, which is the molecule that makes rotten eggs so stinky. So if human beings were ever to visit Uranus and pass through its clouds, they would be greeted with the stinking smell of rotten eggs. However, this would be the least of your worries, as suffocation and exposure in negative 200 degrees Celsius atmosphere that is mostly made of hydrogen, methane, and helium will take its toll way before the smell. Scientists are of the opinion that the presence of excessive hydrogen sulfide in Uranus' atmosphere can be a result of the position of the planet at the time of the formation of the solar system. Queen Nefertiti and Ramesses II. The ancient civilization of Egypt has intrigued us for many years. We have found some incredible artifacts that have given us a small insight into how this empire operated. Archaeologists in Egypt have recently found a 6,000-year-old tomb complex. Inside these chambers, they discovered dozens of cat mummies and rare scarab which were also mummified. They were all found inside a 5th dynasty tomb, and the researchers have announced they plan to show these discoveries to the public. Interestingly enough, researchers and Egyptologists have said there's likely more of these undiscovered chambers scattered around the pyramids, and that uncovering them will give us a better understanding of Egypt's past. One thing researchers have come forward and said is that Queen Nefertiti could be hiding in one of these secret chambers. She is considered a powerful and respected woman of the past. Queen Nefertiti was queen of ancient Egypt from 1353 to 1336 BC, and may have even ruled over her kingdom after her husband passed away. Nefertiti is an icon and perhaps best known for her beauty and power. Going back to 1913, an incredible bust of hair was discovered and it instantly became a hit with the general public. From that moment on, she would grab the attention of millions worldwide and became one of the most recognizable faces of ancient Egypt. Although she is perhaps one of the most famous figures from ancient Egypt, some of her history is shrouded in mystery. Egyptologists have suggested that she may be the daughter of Ai, a top advisor who would go on to become pharaoh after King Tut's death. Recently, a team of British and Egyptian archaeologists scanned King Tut's tomb. This took the researchers over 3 days, but they've said it could help to unravel one of the biggest ancient mysteries. Previous scans of King Tut's chamber showed researchers that there are other chambers and organic materials behind the walls. This could suggest that the famous Nefertiti is buried in one of these unknown chambers. However, as of today, researchers have not been able to locate the famous queen. Any news that comes out about Queen Nefertiti is purely speculation. Another fascinating discovery in regard to ancient Egypt is the giant bust of King Ramesses II that was recently discovered. Incredibly, it was found in a slum, and after Egyptologists inspected it, they said it would have been over 25 feet tall. Ramesses II was also known as Ramesses the Great. He was the third pharaoh of the 19th dynasty and led his people into a new era. He was known as a great warrior and was respected by all across his kingdom. During his time, he had over 200 wives, 96 sons, and 60 daughters. One of the reasons Ramesses the Great was viewed as godlike was because of the age he lived to. He passed away in his 90s, and incredibly, he outlived most of his own children. He ruled over ancient Egypt for 67 years and was perhaps one of the most admired ancient kings. Many giant statues of him have been found all over Egypt. Egyptologists have said there is virtually no ancient sites in Egypt which do not mention Ramesses the Great. The Great Pyramid of Calula. Despite many claiming that the ancient pyramids of Giza are the largest structures created by an ancient civilization, the truth is that is hardly the case. Located in Mexico and built by the ancient Aztec civilization is a pyramid so massive that many living on the structure believed it to be nothing more than a naturally made mountain. Known as the Great Pyramid of Calula, one of the largest structures created in the Americas, along with being a massive Aztec temple that rivals every other in creation, the structure has a base 4 times larger than that of the Giza pyramids and almost twice the total volume. The pyramid is located in the city of Puebla, Mexico, and is known as the world's largest pyramid in construction. Researchers believe that the pyramid was constructed back in 300 BC, though many accounts believe it to be far older, in honor of their ancient god, known as Quetzalcoatl. For 1,000 years, the pyramid was used as a place of worship before being abandoned by the population for a reason not totally known by researchers today. Considering the site was abandoned and no maintenance was provided, this left the humidity of the air and the never-ending downpour of rain to reclaim the mud and adobe brick used in its construction back into the formation of soil to be used for new tropical greenery, though continues to hold undisturbed layers beneath that of the layers of mud and brick on the surface. Today, excavations on the site cannot be accomplished due to an old Spanish Church of Christianity built atop the structure that locals refuse to allow to be demolished to study the structure underneath, leaving it as one of the biggest mysteries of the ancient Aztec civilization. The Untersberg Mountains. The Untersberg Mountain can be found amongst the Bortzgaden Alps on the border of the countries of Germany and Austria. Although the site is regarded as one of the prime hiking spots for travelers coming from all around the world just to bask in its scenic beauty, it appears that the mountain holds a history surrounded in unexplainable phenomenon. Researchers often regard the Untersberg Mountain as one of the most mysterious mountains in the world, due to the fact that it appears to be at the center of many different rumors that believe the mountains to house ancient lost civilizations, the burial grounds of long-forgotten Roman emperors and strange never-before-seen creatures in its forests. In fact, these legends are so old that there are reports from the Nazi regime that the Nazi leader Adolf Hitler was focused on uncovering the strange mysteries of the mountain and that he had funded the construction of a house on a nearby mountain. Observe Untersberg through high-powered state-of-the-art telescopes and research equipment. Today, strange reports still occur as travelers will often report that during their journeys, they will suddenly lose track of time or notice that they are missing whole sections of time. In some cases, many have even claimed to suddenly waking up on a different area of the mountain together with evidence that hours have passed since they were hiking before. People have suggested that this could be due to portals opening up that warp space and time and cause people to travel greater distances than is physically possible, whereas others believe it could be due to possible alien abductions. It is common in alien abduction reports for people to experience a strange loss of memories, time, or a form of a mind wipe that follows an extraterrestrial attack. Terror. It seeps into our veins and creates apprehension and dread. It's within our human nature to be afraid of what we don't understand. Fear is what kept our ancestors wary of danger. One concept has simultaneously terrified and morbidly fascinated humans for centuries. This is demonic possession. So today, here at Unexplained Mysteries, we'll be delving deep into that which has haunted humanity for generations. The belief in demons, evil spirits, and exorcisms. We scarcely think about exorcisms. Demonic possession is often shunned as superstition, yet surprisingly over the past few years, there's been a sharp rise in demand for exorcisms. So many, in fact, that the Vatican is holding courses to train future exorcists. This is so they can supply trained specialists to those who declare themselves in need of deliverance. The pastoral courses teach the basics of exorcism. This includes a prayer of liberation. This is the most common prayer to use during an exorcism. A priest revealed that, allegedly, the amount of Italian people reporting demonic possession has tripled to 500,000 cases a year. An Irish priest professed that a similar situation is occurring in Ireland. The fight against the evil one started at the origin of the world, and is destined to last until the end of the world. This was stated by Father Cesare Trucui when questioned about this by the local Vatican City News. But today we are at a crucial stage in history. Many Christians no longer believe in the devil's existence. Few exorcists are appointed, and there's no more young priests willing to learn the doctrine and practice of liberation of souls, according to a Christian think tank. The exorcism industry has become popular in Britain, Italy, and Ireland. Religious experts, including many different priests, agree that demonic possession seems to be a pressing issue in today's society. Scientific and non-religious experts, however, warn of the dangers of spiritual abuse. An exorcist from Sicily, Father Paella, states that the Church is aware of the controversy surrounding the belief in exorcisms. But the exorcism training is essential, because a self-taught exorcist certainly makes errors. Meanwhile, Father Collins in Ireland has said that the Irish people seek his guidance and help almost every day. This is in dealing with what they describe to be demonic influences. It's only in recent years that the demand has risen exponentially, he explained. What I'm finding out is people in their own minds believe, rightly or wrongly, that they're afflicted by an evil spirit. Father Collins shared his mixed views on the matter, however. I think in many cases they wrongly think it, but when they turn to the Church doesn't know what to do with them. Despite his own dedication to the Catholic faith, he disagrees with the concept of so many sudden cases being real. Technically, there are guidelines in place to limit the potential for spiritual abuse that should theoretically stop people from being exorcised against their will. According to these guidelines, professional psychiatrists, doctors, and psychologists should be consulted throughout the process. And Richards, the national advisor for the Church of England, explained that she has never come across an authorized case of demonic possession, as those are incredibly rare. The majority of cases she's witnessed were unauthorized and could be explained scientifically, despite her own spiritual beliefs. So if someone tells a church leader they're suffering with depression, sometimes the response is everything can be treated with prayer. The extreme end of that is exorcism, said Ben Ryan, author of Theos Report on the matter. Even in the US, there's been a significant spike in the desire for exorcists in tight-knit communities. The lack of church-sanctioned exorcisms has been great news for individual exorcists. They charge up to €500 in euro per session to rid people of demons. The belief in demonic possession is that an entity, demon, or spirit is able to control someone's actions against their will. Those who claim to be possessed often maintain that symptoms of possession include memory loss, the inability to control oneself, and voices in one's mind. An anthropologist carried out a study which showed that in 488 different worldwide societies, up to 74% of the population believe in spiritual or demonic possession. Demonic possession is a primarily Christian belief. Christianity has always carried the view that Satan and his lesser demons have the ability to possess humans in order to corrupt them, thus damning them to the depths of hell. It's mentioned in several biblical episodes of the New Testament that Jesus drove out demons from people infested with evil. Catholic priests believe there are several kinds of possession. Obsession includes sudden irrationality, obsessive thought, and taking their own life ideation. Typically, these manifest in one's dreams, slowly tormenting them. Oppression is when the victim loses consciousness or is forced by the entity to act against their morals or will, controlling their body and sending the victim's life spiraling into misfortune. Possession, as we know it, is when Satan or another demon takes full control of a person's body and uses it as a vessel without their consent. This is typically seen in Catholicism to be in part the fault of the victim, as they must have done something which allowed Satan's influence into their lives. Infestation refers to demons inhabiting objects, things, animals, or even houses. This is what occurred in the house at which the movie The Conjuring was based off. Subjection is when a person gives the possession of their own free will, consenting to having their body be used as an unholy vessel. Other symptoms of possession are superhuman strength, the ability to speak in tongues or foreign languages, knowledge of obscure information the victim should not know, blasphemous wrath, and excessive profanity, as well as painful aversion to holy names, symbols, or relics. Catholic doctrine states that demonic possession can occur as a result of a mental disorder. It also states, however, that cases of mental sickness shouldn't be mistaken for unholy influence officially. Technically, Catholic exorcisms may only occur under the strict authority of a bishop and should adhere to very specific rules. Unfortunately, such rules are hardly followed in reality, as many people turn to non-official exorcists instead of struggling to attain the Vatican's permission. Years ago, an academic psychiatrist named Dr. Richard Gallagher woke up in the middle of the night to find his otherwise docile cats attacking each other and screaming wildly. He separated the two cats and returned to bed, puzzled by their behavior. A priest came to Dr. Gallagher's door the following morning with a raven-haired woman claiming to be the high priestess of Satanism. She introduced herself as Julia. Julia explained that she believed herself to be possessed by demonic entities, and that somehow she'd caused the cat's behavior. Dr. Gallagher didn't know it then, but this would be the first of countless cases he would deal with, trying to differentiate between spiritual possession and mental illness. Dr. Gallagher claimed that Julia spoke numerous languages, which she swore she didn't know, and even levitated for half an hour during an exorcism. "I know I'm possessed," Julia said to him. "I space out and then don't recall what happens. They tell me a voice comes out of me. I don't know. I don't remember anything. It's a demon, I'm sure." Decades following their fateful meeting, Gallagher had delved into the world of exorcisms and possessions. Since then, Gallagher had been living in the world of exorcisms. He's assisted priests and has partaken in hundreds of cases surrounding exorcisms and demonic activity. Gallagher has written a book about his experiences. He explained his personal views on possessions during an interview. "I think there are certain people, both psychiatric patients and the rare cases of people who suffer, who should understand this. There are people with mental problems who think they're possessed and the reverse." Gallagher, with his academic background, has an interesting viewpoint on the matter. He believes in demonic possession enough to consult and work alongside the clergy, and has a clear fascination and raw passion for what he does. Yet he treads carefully and is mindful of mental health conditions that may be mistaken for possession. Still, he swears that he's witnessed undoubtedly true cases of demonic possessions and horrors beyond imagination. In the end, the question of demonic possession real can only be speculated upon. There's far too many variables, beliefs, and opinions to come to a specific conclusion. From a strictly scientific view, no, demons cannot exist. Yet, from the view of passionate Christianity, yes, possession is real. The answer is one that remains undecided, unsolved, and unexplained. Cases of demonic possession have always, still are, and always will be reported, though it may always be a mystery whether they are true cases or misdiagnosed tragedies. In the end, as most things, the answer depends on your personal views. So what do you make of these Vatican mysteries surrounding demonic possession? The mystery of Roman concrete. Though many will claim that our modern-day concrete is equivalent to that of ancient Roman concrete, educated researchers are well aware of the lost technology and how our modern-day construction efforts pale in comparison to that of ancient Rome. For reasons not entirely known, Roman concrete was capable of setting and hardening even one underwater, as well as the fact that the concrete structures were far more stable than modern-day concrete, of which requires the addition of rebar to handle tensile strength to prevent the concrete from breaking down. The use of this concrete allowed the Roman Empire to accomplish engineering feats that rival even the greatest construction efforts of the modern day, and to have formed structures millennia ago that will more than outlast any modern-day constructions fitted with the greatest techniques in building. In fact, researchers estimate that if humans were to disappear, the last standing man-made would be that of the ancient pyramids of Giza and those made using Roman concrete. The flashes before an earthquake. Referred to as earthquake light, it has often been reported that during an earthquake, people have observed strange lights appearing in the sky above them. The report seemed to coincide with areas near tremendous tectonic stress, such as seismic activity or volcanic eruptions. Originally, many researchers believed the flashes were nothing more than visual hallucinations by those experiencing the earthquake, and believing to see strange lights in the sky. However, given recent seismic activity, the occurrence of these lights have been proven, and many theories as to how they are caused range wildly. To this day, no one really knows what causes these strange lights, and some have gone as far as claiming that perhaps the lights are more supernatural in nature, as some sightings appeared to have occurred moments before an earthquake even happened. Other theories, known as the positive holes model, believes these earthquake lights to be caused by the sudden ionization of air. However, evidence for this theory has been dismissed and no supporting proof has been provided. The Rosetta Stone is seen as one of the single most greatest discoveries that has resonated with changes all around the world to uncover the secrets that many at the time had believed would never be understood. Discovered in 1799, the Rosetta Stone proved to be the missing key required to decipher the ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics as well as the mysteries of the ancient Egyptian civilization as a whole. The stone itself had 3 separate written languages inscribed upon it that was believed to have been created back in 196 BC and told the story of the deeds that had been accomplished by the pharaoh at that time that was believed to have been written by the high priests of Egypt. The top and middle texts were ancient Egyptian, written in both the hieroglyphic script and the Demotic script, while the bottom text was a translated paragraph of the top 2 decrees written in the ancient Greek language. Using these translations as the basis for the language, experts began translating decades of hieroglyphic scriptures discovered all around ancient Egypt that before this point could not be understood. Not only did this lead to an explosion of knowledge in the Egyptologist community, but helped to shed incredible light into one of the oldest civilizations on the planet. Many experts believe that without this incredible discovery, we would still be no closer to translating the ancient Egyptian language even in the modern day. Not only did this help us to preserve the information crafted so many centuries ago, but allowed us to piece together a much clearer picture of the origins of civilization. Da Vinci's robotic contraptions. For a brief moment of his life, Leonardo da Vinci worked as a chief military engineer for the Italian army and worked at designing new and innovative weapons of war to assist with the influence of his country and the political gain of those closest to him. This led to a wide variety of new and interesting designs created by the inventor to help with war efforts whenever necessary. Many of these designs include helicopter-like aerodynamic machines capable of flight, large trebuchets, catapults, and engineered ways to get over large stone walls without sacrificing any men, as well as a variety of ancient tank designs powered by horses or protected gears. These all pale in comparison to Leonardo da Vinci's greatest hidden invention, the robotic knight. After Leonardo da Vinci was put in charge of a pageant in Milan by the Duke at the time, he felt compelled to design an interesting machine that could replicate the movements of a man completely independently. This led to the design of a suit of armor filled with mechanical gears and wheels connected to an internal pulley and cable system that could do a variety of functions on its own. Back in 2002, Mark Rochium discovered several of these robotic knight notes and used the designs to recreate the robot in the modern day. Not only did he find that the robot was completely balanced, but that it was capable of independent motion such as walking, waving, sitting down, standing up, and moving its head and lifting its visor. These designs would later be stolen and used by NASA in developing their own cutting-edge 7 Earth-like planets found in TRAPPIST-1 system. What's better than finding a planet that could support life? It's finding several planets that could support life and could very well have extraterrestrial organisms on them. This is exactly what NASA achieved in 2017 when it announced that it had discovered 7 Earth-like planets orbiting the ultra-cooled star TRAPPIST-1. According to astronomers, it is absolutely mind-blowing that a single star system could host 7 Earth-like planets, all within the habitable zone. The host star is about the same size as planet Jupiter in our solar system. This fascinating star system is located at a distance of 39 light-years in the constellation Aquarius. The star is estimated to be 500 million years old, and according to astronomers, its properties are such that it will far outlive the Sun in our solar system. Researchers are now studying the various properties of these exoplanets. They have already calculated the orbits of these planets. According to researchers, some of the planets in the system could have as much as 5% of their mass in liquid water form. In comparison, our Earth has only approximately 0.02% of its mass in liquid water form. This means each of these planets could potentially have 250 times more water than that on Earth. Researchers have also been able to find the densities of these distant worlds. It is estimated that the density of these planets is around 0.6 to 1 times that of Earth's density. According to researchers, the innermost worlds, TRAPPIST-1b and TRAPPIST-1c, could have rocky cores, and they could have much denser and thicker atmospheres than Earth. Thick and steamy atmospheres because of the heat received from their host star. The other exoplanets in the system could be covered with ice because of comparatively lower heat received from the host star. Researchers believe that TRAPPIST-1d is the lightest planet in the system, and its low mass could be a result of a large atmosphere, a huge ocean, or a frozen layer of ice. TRAPPIST-1f, TRAPPIST-1g, and TRAPPIST-1h are located at such a distance that although they could have some liquid water, there is more chance of them having a completely frozen surface. Also, they have thinner atmospheres, and chances are that they lack the heavier molecules present on Earth. Although all 7 planets are within their habitable zone and look similar to Earth, one planet in particular has shown quite similar characteristics to that of Earth. Researchers have also found that the energy that this planet receives from its host star is almost equal to the energy that Earth receives from the Sun. NASA reports that latent viruses in humans may be activated during space missions. According to new research published in Frontiers in Microbiology and funded by NASA, over half of the astronauts during the Space Shuttle and International Space Station flight have shown latent herpes virus reactivated within them, which is believed to have been caused by stress. The research is in line with NASA's deep space travel with astronauts going to the Moon and Mars, and how the immune system of the astronauts reacts in space missions. The herpes viruses remain in a dormant state in the spinal cord nerve cells as controlled by the immune system of the body. However, these viruses can be reactivated and reproduce, especially for people who spend time in space. When this happens, the person shows no signs or symptoms or becomes ill, except if the person is elderly or has a damaged immune system. According to Dr. Mehta at NASA's Johnson Space Center, 47 out of 89 astronauts on short space shuttle flights and 14 out of 23 on longer International Space Station missions shed herpes viruses in their saliva or urine samples. These shed viruses are higher in terms of frequency and quantity as compared to before or after the flight. Dr. Mehta went on to list the physical challenges astronauts have to face, from spending days to months exposed to radiation and microgravity, to the increased G-forces of takeoff and re-entry, to social separation and confinement. All these gives rise to the secretion of cortisol and adrenaline, which are stress hormones and are bound to change the immune system. The rapid viral detection systems were developed by Dr. Mehta and NASA, alongside International Space Station immunologists and virologists. They are currently looking for countermeasures for astronauts who would be embarking on deep space travel. Hikers on Devil's Mountain resting on the borders of San Pablo, Laguna, and Dolores, Quixcom, is a mountain referred to by the locals living in the area as the Devil's Mountain. The mountain, known as Mount Cristobal, has been surrounded with a number of disappearances from hikers every single year that claims the lives of even the most experienced hikers in the region. Despite this, it appears that the majority of bodies have not been recovered from these missing hikers, leading some to believe that instead of perishing, they are taken to another world of some kind. One such story from the locals tells of that of a married couple that went on a hike to the mountain and stayed there for a few days. After they had met others and told them they would be taking a forked path, they were never seen from again, leaving many people wondering which path they had taken and become lost, since there seemed to have been no forked path in the area. This story would later come up once again after a group of boys went to the mountain on a hiking trip and came across a married couple that fit the look and description of the couple that had went missing a few years prior, and so followed the couple, believing that they might be ghosts or strange manifestations of the lost couple. As they followed the couple, they witnessed them going down a forked path and so followed them, of which eventually led to them losing sight of the couple and sustaining injuries falling down an area of the mountain. This has led some to believe that the lost people of whom went hiking on the mountain are still there, stuck in a possible time loop or warped reality in which they are jumping through time and encountering other people of whom have went missing on the mountain years prior. These fears have left many, including experienced hikers, worried as to how or why these strange occurrences have been appearing on the mountain, and so leave many fearful of journeying through the region. Hopkinsville Goblin. Back on the 21st of August in the year of 1955, there is an impossible-to-explain incident that led to many believing that perhaps some strange extraterrestrial beings, later given the name of the Hopkinsville Goblins, had made contact with humans, being only to demonstrate a malevolent behavior. According to the police reports surrounding the incident, the Hopkinsville Police Department reported that 5 adults and 7 children, obviously distraught and in a panic. They reported to the police department that they had been in a gunfight lasting more than 4 hours after small alien creatures had come out of a spaceship and began to attack them at their farmhouse. According to 2 witnesses of the event, they claimed that there had been somewhere between 12 and 15 short humanoid figures that had repeatedly popped up at the doorway and peered in through the windows that forced the family to open fire, to keep the creatures from entering the home. As they would shoot the creatures, they claimed they would fall to the floor momentarily, only to roll away and get back up and resume trying to enter the home. The others gave descriptions of the creatures that they believed were extraterrestrial beings standing at roughly 2 to 4 feet tall and had large pointed ears, claws for hands, and large eyes that glowed yellow. This led to the police department sending 4 city police, 3 deputy sheriffs, and 4 military police to the farmhouse to conduct an investigation on the matter, leading to them finding evidence of the gunfights, bullet holes, and clawed attempts to enter the home against the doors and windowsills. A few hours later, the family would pack up and leave the farmhouse entirely after reports claimed the creatures had returned at around 3:30 a.m. and tried to resume the gunfight once more. Nothing more was ever understood from the event following this incident. The Lost Franklin Expedition Ship. Ghost stories and theories of potentially new uncovered diseases or monsters out in the vast expanse of unexplored territories arose after the mysterious disappearance of the Franklin Expedition Ship. In 1845, a British explorer that went by the name Sir John Franklin began his expedition in the hopes of discovering a northwest passage through the Canadian Arctic. Although the voyage was incredibly well funded and the team was provided with more than enough equipment and means to begin their journey, supplied with 2 ships and over 129 men, this did not prevent the voyage from becoming a terrifying tragedy. Sir John Franklin and his crew would completely vanish from the face of the earth and never be heard from again after starting their hopeful endeavor. For decades, the circumstances surrounding the event remained a mystery. In 1859, a group of explorers discovered 2 notes that had seemingly hinted at the fate of the crewmen that were dated approximately a year apart. The first note had detailed that the ships had become trapped in the ice, and the crew planned to wait out the winter before continuing their journey, which remained filled with tones of an upbeat attitude and hopeful promises. The second note, however, took a dramatic turn. The note reported that while the ships had continued to remain trapped during the year, the crew of the 2 ships began experiencing an unusually high mortality rate from an unknown cause. The note detailed that Sir John Franklin had died under mysterious circumstances, and the remaining crew that the note referred to as survivors would attempt to walk south to safety against whatever appeared to be responsible for their mortality rate. None of the crewmen were found alive, and the local Inuit population reported finding human bones with strange markings that made it appear as if whoever they found was eaten alive. No further evidence was uncovered, and the full story of what had occurred remained a mystery. This would change in 2014, however, as it was announced by then Canadian Prime Minister Stephen Harper that one of the ships had been recovered. This finding will likely hold clues about the exact fate of the expedition, but has yet to be investigated fully. Oddly enough, the second ship has yet to be found, but there is no doubt that it will be uncovered soon enough. Unfortunately, further information regarding the recovered ship has not yet been made available to the general public. Military encounters with the jinn. Definitely seen as one of the strangest reports of modern-day encounters with the jinn was a military encounter seen in Mosul, Iraq back in June of 2003. An Iraqi soldier and other fighters were stationed at the second floor of a police department to assist with the attacks against the police between the locals and the law enforcement of the city. Lots of people were confused by the sudden attacks by the police. And so one of the main purposes of the Iraqi army assisting with safety was to uncover the reasons as to why such disturbances were taking place. In one of the reports taken by an Iraqi military squad stationed for 24/7 surveillance, they claimed that they encountered several jinn of whom were watching and patrolling the station. The report details that they believed the individuals to be jinn due to the fact they had glowing red eyes and seemed completely unfazed by the bright surveillance lights used to blind passersby of whom attempted to get too close to the station at night. Shortly after the report was filed, the entire station was attacked and every soldier and police in the department were killed with no survivors. It then circulated that the jinn were at the center of the attack and the majority of the disturbances were caused by the jinn waging the plans of attack. After the report surfaced, the attacks stopped, with many locals claiming that the jinn went back into hiding after they were discovered. Egypt's Ministry of Antiquities has just issued a message saying that within the next few days it will reveal the most important archaeological discovery made in 2020. Archaeologists who are currently excavating in Saqqara have said they have some very exciting discoveries to share with the public. According to various sources, the discovery is said to be 100 coffins that archaeologists say are in great condition, going on to say that they've been untouched for thousands of years. The discovery comes just a month after researchers discovered 59 painted coffins, all of which were found at the same sites, leading scientists and researchers to focus all their attention on this area at this moment in time. Another discovery that's being made is that of 27 coffins found in Egypt's Saqqara pyramid. The news was confirmed in September 2020, and this was by officials who were excited to spread the news. Saqqara is a World Heritage Site just outside of Cairo and has been an active burial ground for over 1,000 years. 13 of the coffins were found recently, approximately 11 meters underground, and another 14 were discovered in a nearby well just a few weeks later. The origins of the coffins are still unknown, as archaeologists continue to work on finding that information. While the discovery of over 24 coffins is a tremendous find, it doesn't come as much of a shock. In fact, 30 wooden coffins were found in Luxor in 2019, as well as a range of mummified animals in Saqqara. These recent discoveries point to the possibility of many other coffins that have yet to be discovered in Egypt. This particular area was known as a burial ground, so the discovery of the coffins wasn't what caught researchers' attention. Experts were drawn in by how well preserved the coffins were. The sarcophagus has remained unopened for over 2,500 years and is decorated with ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics. Some still maintain vibrant colors, despite being underground for such a long period of time. As each new discovery arises, we find ourselves learning more about the Egyptians' history, which is enthralling to archaeologists and experts seeking answers. These revelations provide hope to those looking for more information, as we are slowly but surely revealing moments of the past we once knew nothing about. Archaeological discoveries have been at the forefront of tourism for Egypt recently, and they've set out to conduct more excavations in order to attract more visitors. Despite using these findings as a way to draw more people to Egypt for tourism, we are always learning more about Egypt's past and what the lives of people from that time period were like. Whilst we still don't know all the details regarding the preservation of these coffins and how they managed to survive over thousands of years, we're on the way to finding out. It's definitely interesting to think about how we evolved as humans and where technology has taken us. With that being said, it never hurts to look back at the past to learn new lessons, adopt new practices, and use that for making positive changes throughout the world. We may not have all the answers yet, but every little bit of information counts. One of the many questions that the study of ancient Egypt has thrown up is how did the Egyptians manage to build such impressive structures? Given that there was no modern engineering, mathematics, scientific research, or equipment to build the pyramids, they had to use inventive and groundbreaking methods to build these incredible structures. However, some researchers have said we shouldn't be looking at what the Egyptians built, but rather what they dug out of the ground. There's much more to the pyramids than what we see on the surface. Much like an iceberg, for example, pyramids are in fact only the visible part of massive complexes. Contrary to popular belief, the oldest pyramid is not the Great Pyramid of Giza, but rather the Pyramid of Djoser. The pharaoh Djoser of the 3rd dynasty is said to have turned to his architect Imhotep early on in his reign and asked him to build a pyramid. The pyramid was the first to use the step design, where the sides of the pyramid are like a staircase rather than flat, and it was allegedly completed in only 19 years. Although we don't understand why Imhotep did what we're about to describe, it was a pretty impressive feat nonetheless. Underneath Djoser's pyramid, Imhotep constructed a huge subterranean world. It's thought that this may have been created as a home for Djoser's car, which is described as the principal aspect of the soul of a human being or a god. Perhaps then Imhotep could have been building an afterlife temple for the pharaoh. Although this particular pyramid throws up many questions, as no other pyramids in Egypt featured a complex underworld. This begs the question, why did Joseph want such a grand system built? Did he even request such a system underground? These questions are still unanswered by historians, but they do throw up some interesting theories. Strangely, the storage facilities underneath Djoser's pyramid contain stones that predate the pharaoh's reign by few generations, which could indicate that the subterranean world underneath his pyramid existed long before the pyramid itself. So who really built this strange complex? That is something that we're yet to discover. The land of the pharaohs was undoubtedly full of wonder, and despite the civilization's innovative capabilities, it was still very mysterious when it came to certain rituals and beliefs. Learning about how these ancient rulers went about their lives and why they did what they did also offers an unrivaled insight into why the world developed the way it did. Today, more than ever, we need to ensure that we properly understand the history of the world around us, as only then will we as humans be able to move forward productively as one. Researchers and scientists have said they plan to carry on exploring the nearby area and hope that more discoveries can be made in the near future. As each new discovery reaches the surface, it gives us an insight into this incredible civilization. So what do you guys make of these recent discoveries? Religion is a topic that's heavily debated, and there's many reasons that someone would want to believe in religion. For many, it gives them a sense of comfort, helps them to relax knowing that there's a higher power, and for some reassurance in knowing that there's an afterlife and that they'll be reunited with their loved ones. One image recently went viral. It showed Sister Cecilia with a radiant smile, and at first many were confused as to why the pictures went viral. But unfortunately, Sister Cecilia was in her final days. She was in a losing battle against cancer. She passed away on the 22nd of June at age 43. Many readers were surprised to hear the story and noted how strong she looked in her final moments. It was even said that Pope Francis was moved by the images and said that he had prayed for her, in which he said he knew all the good things she had done during her life and that she was very much loved. Sister Cecilia Maria spent a large portion of her life at a monastery in Argentina where she dedicated herself to God. Those who spent time around her stated she was always happy and in a good mood, going on to say that she played the violin and was known for her beautiful smile. Last January was when she was diagnosed with cancer of the tongue. Sadly, it quickly made its way to her lungs. Those who were close to her, though, said that she remained strong throughout the whole ordeal, with family members saying that they spent a lot of time with her and shelled her with love. Family members would travel to the hospital, and when it was time to leave, they would head out into the garden and send her messages via helium balloons. A source close to her said the following: "Those who saw her spoke of her face as showing peace and joy, as someone awaiting the encounter with the one to whom she had given her life, our Lord Jesus Christ." Towards the end of her life, Sister Cecilia wasn't able to speak due to her condition, but she wrote these words on a piece of paper: "I am very content, astonished by the work of God through suffering, and by so many people who pray for me." Her last words were the following: "I was thinking about how I'd like my funeral to be. First some intense prayers and then a great celebration for everyone. Don't forget to pray, but don't forget to celebrate either." End quote. Many people commented on how strong she was, and that even though she had what she had, she was still able to find a way to smile. In recent years, many interesting religious events have allegedly been witnessed by the masses, with eyewitnesses saying that some of these events have been the real deal. When people experience these apparitions, they seem to defy logic and reasoning. It reaffirms their belief that this comes from something that is real. For hundreds of years, mysterious events have been witnessed by humans, many of these involving mysterious objects in the sky and strange apparitions appearing before us. Although it's easy for some to say these aren't real, sometimes when applying logic, all this does is show us more questions than answers. For those who do experience these once-in-a-lifetime events, it has, in many cases, changed their lives, helping them to believe that there's more to life than what we make out. One of the most interesting events reported comes from a remote area of northwestern Japan. Here, a small convent sits in the town of Akita. While small in size, this place has become very well known, with pilgrims coming from all over the world to pay their respects. It began with a 3-foot-tall statue of the Virgin Mary, called Our Lady of Akita, and a deaf nun named Sister Sasagawa. One day in 1973, Sister Sasagawa was praying in the chapel when she heard the statue calling out to her. She looked up and the statue illuminated the room with a bright light and angels in attendance. Messages of prophecy and prayer from the statue followed, but that was only the beginning of the supernatural episodes to come. Soon after this statue of the Virgin Mary had called out to Sister Sasagawa, wounds of the crucifixion started to appear in the statue's hands. Liquid began to seep from these marks, and the statue then appeared to perspire, together with tears falling from her eyes. A sister who was witness to this supernatural event said the following: "It seemed to be truly cut into flesh. The edge of the cross had the aspect of human flesh, and one even saw the grain of the skin like a fingerprint. I said to myself at that moment that the wound was real." End quote. The statue went on to weep over 100 times. Interestingly, this incredible event was not just witnessed by inhabitants of the convent, but over 10 million people when it was broadcast on national TV. Scientific evidence also supported what was being seen. With lab tests performed on the samples of blood, sweat, and tears that came from the statue, it was concluded that they were not synthetic and indeed of organic and human origin. Further miracles were soon to come. In South Korea, a woman named Teresa Chun's son who had been diagnosed with a brain tumor and given a grave prognosis. She went into a coma, but at the same time saw a vision of this statue. Coming out of the coma, Teresa traveled to Japan to pay homage and pray in the same chapel. At the same time, her friends and relatives also began to pray for healing in the name of Our Lady of Akita. On Teresa's return, her doctors were shocked. The tumor had gone and she was completely healed. This medical miracle would not be the last of Our Lady of Akita. The next was fittingly related to the sister who came across this incredible statue in the first place. Sister Sasagawa. Born prematurely and in poor health for most of her life, her hearing had pretty much deteriorated by the time she entered the convent. She would go on to be verified as being incurably deaf by medical experts. However, after years of praying to this statue, her ears were opened, and it was confirmed that her hearing was completely restored. Incredibly, she too had been healed, and the miraculous nature of Our Lady of Akita are found. So what do you make of these stories?